vivo. Acho que tá. Quando o Brasil iniciou um vídeo ao vivo, o Nelson entrou. Nelson entrou. A Ana Beatriz entrou. E aí, pessoal? Só um minutinho, esperar todo mundo entrar. Uma boa noite para todo mundo. A gente já vai começar, tá bom? Já tô chamando o Nelson aqui. Hi,
Hi.
Nelson. Are you okay?
I'm okay. Can you hear me well?
Yes. And you, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Great. Alessandro is already here. Let's start.
Okay.
People arriving.
People are coming. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Alessandro. How you doing? Just 1 second. Let me get the light so it's a little too bright behind me. Looks.
Take your time, man.
Carol. Hi, Carol.
This is better, right?
Carol.
Or is it too dark?
It's better, much better.
Okay.
Great. Are you ready, Nelson, to talk with us?
I'm ready.
About your city, about your country.
My country. My current country. I am, yes.
Great. Então vamos só esperar um pouquinho o pessoal entrar aí. Que a gente
Where are you guys? Like which building are you guys in? Because I know you have a lot of buildings now.
A lot of buildings. Sorry.
Are you on Moraes Barros? Or like which building are you on?
But in another building.
Another building, but in the same street.
Okay.
Another building. Bigger than the other one. Beautiful, clean, new. Then much better.
Yeah, every time I go to Brazil, like there's a new Poly Brazil building. There's a new branch or something.
You have to come to see us, to drink a coffee.
I will.
Então,
Next time I will. Yeah.
Gente aí, gente, legal. Eu vou fazer então uma introdução, ok? Then Alessandro begins with you our conversation. So first of all, I would like to thank Nelson for accepting our invitation to be with us in this live, in our live. Nelson was our English student. Then he became our teacher, English teacher. He left us to live and work in New York and stay there studying, and he succeeded. Today we will talk about the situation in the United States, especially New York, after the death of George Floyd, and about pandemic. I'm sorry. Our teacher, Alessandro Borba, who will be the host in this conversation, that will surely be first of many. So I'm going to call Alessandro. Enjoy, everybody. You can make questions. In the end of the live, we will try to answer the questions, okay? Enjoy.
Hey, man.
Hey, Alessandro.
Good to see you.
Long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see. Well, it's a brand new thing for me as well. Live. I confess that I tried once to make a live in a beach, but it was a little, didn't work. So we're together in this thing, buddy.
I think it's my first time too, like being a guest in somebody else's live video. I think it's my first time. I might have done it. Yeah, I've done it myself, like just a regular live video, just the test probably in the past. But this is the first formal, like virtual chat.
Yeah, so cheers, my first time as well. So that was, I think it's not a nerve-wracking thing, actually. It's this conversation. Guys, just like me, thank you so much for being with us, people that are coming. Sorry, I can see a little, I have to do this sometimes to see people, that because I forgot my glasses, but that's okay. So don't get angry, don't get mad at me if I don't say your name. But I thank you so much. You're there, so please enjoy this time with us and take your time. So Nelson, my great friend, living in New York now. I got a lot of friends, great moments in here in Paulo, Brazil. So I just starting our conversation. Yeah, it's just a conversation, and I'd like that you talk a little bit about yourself, about you, things you've been doing there. So when you're here, just talk a little bit, just so people get to know you.
Okay, so I think Fernanda mentioned it briefly, but I was also a student at Poly Brazil many lives ago. Um, I was also an instructor. I had a couple of classes at some point before I moved here. I moved to the U.S. in 2007. So for the 5 or 6 years before moving, I was either studying or working at Poly Brazil. That's how I started studying English. That's how I studied, computing and everything. So I spent a lot of time at Poly Brazil before moving here. But I always had the goal of moving here just to go to college. I always wanted to be a journalist, and I didn't want to do a journalism school in Brazil I just wanted to get, like a really different type of education, something that only the U.S. could offer. And I had family here too. My dad has been here since I was a child, so it was helpful to have a connection here. So in 2007, I moved here and started college right away. It was a very long road, but I started in community college, which is a smaller type of university, and I did a couple of years there. That was in Connecticut, which is the state the first state north of New York. So it's a very tiny, very small state, but it has a lot of Brazilian people. It's one of the states with the biggest Brazilian communities in the country. So I lived around a lot of Brazilian people for my first few years here. But then I transferred. I went to Long Island, where I completed my bachelor's degree. So my first undergraduate program was at Stony Brook University. It's a smallish school on Long Island. Long Island is part of New York State too. It's just like an island that's a little bit east of New York City. And that's where I got my real journalism degree in 2013.
Yeah.
Then I went to work in Connecticut. I was a reporter for a few years, doing everything for local papers. I covered crime, I covered schools, I covered government, just doing everything, a local journalist does. And then I went back to school for a master's degree at NYU, New York University. That was in 2017 and 18. I did another journalism program, but a little bit different, more on digital innovation. So I learned a lot of coding, a lot of audience engagement skills. It was a little bit of like an advanced journalism program. So that's why I am in the city, because I wanted to study more in a different university that was here. And then I got a job here last year, and I've been working for the New York Daily News for a year. So I live here in Brooklyn. I cover national news stories for the Daily News. The Daily News is a tabloid. I actually brought one just so I can explain what a tabloid is. So
Yeah,
traditional
please.
broadsheet newspapers. Yeah, traditional broadsheet
I think it's not
newspapers.
that famous down here in Brazil when people say tabloid. So can you explain a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, the shape, physically speaking, the shape is similar to Gazeta or Jornal Extra in Brazil. Like it's smaller, so
Oh,
it's just like one feature story on the front page. And we have a lot of celebrity news, a lot of crime, a lot of um, juicy stories. But we do, it's still very great local journalism. But I happen to work for the national desk, so I cover everything outside of New York. A lot of crime, sometimes I do politics, but
yeah, I
a
can
lot of
tell.
national stories and even international. So
Yeah,
that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, you're more involved in, work more with, in terms of crime. You work, you make articles and materials for crime. Yeah. Can you talk?
Mostly, yes, yes. So I'm on the national desk, so I don't have to go outside. I don't have to be in the field interviewing people outside. I do a lot of my stories just making phone calls, emailing people, trying to find material, like doing a lot of research. And it just happens that I do have a preference for crime stories. I did a lot of crime stories in
Yeah, I was
Connecticut.
going to ask you this. So why did you get these preferences about crime and stuff? Or...
I do enjoy it. I think I just got used to it doing it in Connecticut. Like once you get once you get deep into a topic, like I did a lot of crime stories in Connecticut, so I learned about how the court system works, how the police departments work, how
Yeah,
the FBI works. So
yeah,
once you learn all the, all how all the institutions involved with your beat, with your topic work, it's easier. So it's easier for me to do that than doing environment, like
yeah.
covering, global warming and things, because then I need to understand a little more of the science, and it's not really my strength. So yeah, I do a lot of crime. I do five, six, sometimes more stories every day,
Yeah.
and I do because I do mostly breaking news. So I do short stories, like things that are happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that you always in action. Yeah. I think you tell me your journey. You start in the morning, really early in the morning, and then you go um, night,
I'm
evening.
very I'm very lucky. I have a very good schedule. I only work 9 to 5, so it's 9 in the morning to 5 p.m.
Dream work.
Yeah, but it took me a while to get here. For many years, for 10 years, while I was in college and then again in college, and also even working as a journalist in Connecticut, I was in restaurants too. I worked in restaurants for a very long time, even if it was part time as a waiter. I bartended a little bit too. I did catering, like private parties, but mostly as a waiter. I was a barista too for a while, like making coffee.
Yeah, fantastic.
Um, so I had terrible hours. I worked, I would start either 6 in the morning when I worked at this coffee place, or if I was working at a bar, I would start like 6 p.m. and go until 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
So I've paid my dues. Like I've I've done terrible hours before. So
yeah.
now I just start at 9. I have 2 or 3 editors who will help me find story
Oh,
ideas. But I also have my own ways, like my own sources, my own tools. I use a lot of social media to find stories. And then I just start writing, and I do just keep going until 5 p.m.
yeah. I was going to ask you this. You write as well. You like writing stories, and that's what you do. Write stories. You are along with a team, working together with a team. With you.
Yes, it's I do the writing, but then I have people who help with who edit the story, my
Yeah.
editors. They will look at the story and make changes. There are people who write headlines, who help with headlines. People who get photos for my stories, because most
Yes.
of the stories that you see online have like a photo or maybe a gallery or videos. So we have a photo staff, and they handle that. And then there are people who do social media promotion. So they will take our stories and start promoting it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Cool.
So my main job is just reporting and writing, and I have help to, get it out there.
Very nice. And so how long you've been there? You've been this tabloid in this journal.
For the
Um,
Daily News since March,
yes.
yeah, since March 2019. So a little over a year.
Yeah. Very nice, man. Very cool. Well, Nelson, let's go into changing the subject, going to two things that we have to talk a little bit about it. That's we are living this crazy moment. The whole world has stopped because of this virus. So it's I know that kind of it could be a little cliche, but it's I can't help myself. It's everybody's talking about that. We are trying to see a solution. I bet that a lot of people, a lot of science, a lot of big people, big scientists and doctors and people from the health field, trying to find desperately a solution for this thing. And let's pray that this thing happen as soon as possible. But just to give me an overview about the coronavirus in America, especially in New York, that it was the start area epidemic thing. It was the place that really happened, this thing, and spread there. So how Americans now are dealing with this, just give us just an overview.
Yes, New York City was definitely the worst place in the United States for coronavirus cases and coronavirus deaths, like people who died from the disease. We're still in number one. So I actually opened a tab here just so I don't get the numbers wrong. We have more than 2 million cases nationwide around the country. So it's double the numbers of Brazil. So
yeah,
we have a little bit of a bigger population, and it started earlier here. But we're like twice, the numbers here are twice as big.
Yeah.
Out of the 2 million in New York alone, we have, oh, I don't have that number yet. We have hundreds of cases in New York alone. But
Yeah.
from people who died in the United States, we have more than 117,000. And New York is about a quarter of that. I'm really bad with math, but we have more than 30,000 people who died just in New York. So 30,000, that's like 10 times more than the number of victims from 9/11, from the September 11th terrorist attacks. And it's not over. So that's only in our state, in New York State. In New York City, it was definitely the worst part of the state, of course, because it's a huge city. It's like São Paulo. It's very dense. People taking the subway every day and the bus, and the streets are crowded, and a lot of people live in like these packed buildings, apartment buildings. So it's very easy for the virus to spread, and it was very hard to contain it. But I think in New York, I can speak for, at least for New York, we are starting to get back to normal now. Even though a lot of stores, a lot of businesses are still closed, people feel a little more relaxed. It's obvious when you go outside, even though everyone still wears, most people you see outside wearing a mask. A lot of stores have a limit number of people who can go in. So if you want to try to go to a pharmacy, you're absolutely going to have to wait in line outside the pharmacy because they have like a limit of like 10 people inside. So we can keep a distance. So we just learned to adapt. We're still learning adapt to these restrictions. Our numbers of people dying, much lower now because it's been more than 3 months that we're all stuck inside. we're all in lockdown still.
Yeah.
So I think it helped. Just staying home and waiting for the worst, so hospitals could get all the supplies they needed. We can get tested. Like we didn't have tests like 2 months ago. It's very hard to get tested. Yeah. Now it's free. Anyone can get it. You don't even need a reason. You can just go and get it. So that's in New York. In other parts of the U.S., yes, that's in New York. But in other parts of the U.S., they had a delayed start. Like the virus didn't really get bad there until maybe a month ago or a few weeks ago. So people might not have taken it as seriously in other parts. I'm talking about Arizona, Texas, Florida.
Yeah. Spreading all over the country, going to the south. Yes.
Yeah, they treated it a little differently, and now with the weather, it's about to be summer here in a few days. Maybe they saw that it wasn't as bad in their states as it was in New York, and people were just more relaxed. And now their numbers are really, really bad. Like the curve, if you look at the curve for those states, it's like it's exploding, just like it was here like 2 or 3 months ago. So it's not over. It's far from over. I don't think we're gonna go back to normal this year. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it was like sometimes it take a little long for those people being treated, and that's why things are happening, fast as well. Because people stay home, okay, but sometimes they have some symptoms and they are not being assisted. So, and then they're spreading as well. So this is very complicated. So while people
Yeah.
stay home, people leave, and then people come back and bring the virus as well, spread the virus. They're not being assisted. So this is what happened down here in Brazil as well. And now they're trying to see other ways to deal with this. And yeah, but this is something that's going to, as you said, it's a little far from to
It's
get
far
to,
from over. Yeah.
far from over. Yes. Yeah.
But even like you
Nelson.
see, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yeah, please.
I was just gonna say, like a lot of people from Brazil tell me, like, oh, people here are not taking it seriously. They're all outside, going to stores and having barbecue parties. It's not just in Brazil. Like they're doing that here too. So it might be a little bit worse in Brazil, but here sometimes I will go outside just to go to the park, in March and April, just to get some air. And I saw people barbecuing in the park and like families gathering like in huge groups. So it's hard for human beings to be stuck at home for too long in any country. It's not just Brazil. So I
Yeah,
just
it's
wanted to,
pretty complicated.
let you know.
Yeah, it's very complicated because it's like I don't know if you can use this expression, but it actually is like a two-cut knife. You know, you should work and you should stay home. So you know what? It's difficult. People got to work, and we should work, and at the same time, should stay home. So people need to eat, and people go places, and people, it's it's as I told before, it's like a two-cutting knife. It's
Yeah,
very
it's
difficult.
hard.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the
Well,
best thing we can do is
what
just,
about? So, yeah, sorry. What about
yeah, just
economical thing?
take rations.
Yeah, the
Sorry, say that
economics
again?
is being crashing down there, so it's affecting the economy in America. How is all the government is dealing with this thing?
So the lockdown had a
It's a little stuck in a moment. Yeah. Okay, we're back. Woo. Yeah.
okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah, we're back. Yeah. It was
You're back.
stuck in a
Okay.
moment.
So the lockdown, like closing so many stores and businesses definitely had a terrible effect on the economy. A lot of people couldn't work because their business was closed. The unemployment here
Unemployment, yes.
was about 3%, the unemployment rate. Before the was about 3.5%, which is really, really low. It's very good. Am I still there? Like it looks like my video paused.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. It's very
It's
difficult.
freezing a little bit.
Nelson, yeah, it's stuck a little bit out now back. Yeah. Okay. Again, let's change a little bit the subject. There's a lot of things to talk. We needed more than 1 hour thing. It's like you have so many things to talk. But man, let's try to talk a little bit about Nelson. This thing that we have to talk a little bit. George Floyd and all this problem that is going over the country. So, can you give us a little overview about the racism problem, about this George Floyd? A lot of people are. It's not. I heard many people, believe it or not, but I heard a lot of people say it was a focus shift, but this is not. I don't believe this. I really believe that this is a real thing. It's really happening, and we have to take it seriously. And because this is have to stop, and how people are dealing. Give us an overview, please.
So the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis last month, that was one event, and it was after several recent high-profile police killings of black men, of unarmed black men. Um, I was very recently, before George Floyd, covering a case of a jogger, a guy who was running in Georgia, and two white men just chased him down the street. He was not armed, didn't seem to pose a threat, and they just shot him. They're not even cops. Like, one of them was a former police officer, but they shot him. So that was in February, and the video didn't come out until April. So I was covering this story a lot. I did a lot of stories about it. And then the country was very shocked about it. While that was still happening, George Floyd died. Just so you can understand the timing, like, it's not like everything was quiet and then it happened. People were already angry. This, like, the one I was covering in Georgia is not the first one. Like, we had recent ones. There's Breonna Taylor too, a woman who was killed in her own apartment in, I think it was Kentucky, if I'm not wrong. That was also recent, a few months ago. So then George Floyd happened, and it's a 9-minute video of a cop kneeling on his neck while he's pleading for, like, he's begging for his life, telling him multiple times that he couldn't even breathe. So that was so graphic, that was so, like, clear that there was no reason for a cop to, press his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah.
About two of those minutes, he was unresponsive. He was not even alive anymore, or he was not even responding anymore. The guy was still on his neck. The cop was still on his neck. So the video was so shocking that it just sparked a movement. Like, people were just sick of it. Like, okay, this is it. Like, what could be worse than that? Like, we're gonna wait for the next one so we can start, protesting. So people just started taking the streets in the first few days just to ask for an arrest, for the police officers to be arrested and charged. But then it just became like people around the country were angry. So New York City started protesting, and Washington, D.C. started protesting, LA started protesting, Chicago, everyone in the country was behind the same cause, which is Black Lives Matter. Like, we need to stop killing black people.
Yeah, it's something that should stop. Yeah, because it's coming. It's happening a long time ago. Remember LA thing? I think in the 90s as well. In LA,
right? It's not new. It's not new at all. Like, this has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a long time, and now we have video. Like, people with their cell phones are filming these same incidents that always happen.
Yeah.
So now we're just learning about it, and we're watching with our own eyes. So it just turned into a major movement that they don't want just the police to be reformed, like, for police officers to have more training, to be, to use their weapons more wisely, to use their own, jobs more safely. They don't want just the police to be fixed. They also want the whole country, the whole system, the whole government to be less racist, because the police is just one part of the problem. Like, just look at our government, for example. It's mostly white people making decisions all the time.
Yeah.
So black people have been, in the sidelines for centuries, and they're always being victimized. So this is what it's about. It's a movement that's far from ending. It's mostly peaceful. Most of the protests are peaceful, and they want police reform, and they want, the government and people to be more fair, and they just want equality.
Yeah, but that was like I don't know about the Brazilian community. I don't know. You told me once that you were more when you lived in Connecticut. You used to have more, got to have more talk to and have more involvement with Brazilian community. I don't know in New York. If you can tell us something, they have they're going to streets as well and protesting against the Brazilian
They
community
are.
because New York is a lot of yeah.
I did go to one protest to just to shoot videos, just to take pictures and shoot videos. I was not
Yeah.
working that day, but it was, I think, the first weekend of major protests, so maybe 2 weeks ago or so. And it's huge. There were like
Yeah.
thousands of people with signs, with shirts,
Yeah.
chanting, not just Black Lives Matter, but all the known, all the, the chants that they
Yeah.
tend to use, like no justice, no peace.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were very angry at the police. And you can say that it's with good reason. But it was mostly, from what I saw in New York, despite a few confrontations, it was mostly peaceful. Police were there just to, help direct traffic because they take the speed and
Yeah.
then cars can't go in. And the crowd is very diverse. You see Black people, white people, you see Spanish people, Asian, young people, old people, kids.
Yeah.
It's it's a it's a growing movement, and people are really
Yeah. The
getting
whole
behind it.
world. Yeah.
And my neighborhood is very busy. Like this part of Brooklyn, we've been having protests almost every day. And in the beginning, it was a little bit tense with helicopters hovering over just to make sure everything was safe. But I think it's way more under control now. They're a little smaller, but they're still consistent. They're still going out every day. But I don't see, helicopters going crazy anymore. And yeah.
Yeah. It's very strong here in Brazil as well. The movement and this, you're given lots of support. You see all over the world, in France and all places in Europe as well. People are giving, big support for it, and this is important because it should stop. It's been such a long time. It's so interesting, so nice to live in a colored world. And
Yeah.
different ethnics. It's so beautiful. I got the opportunity to visit many countries around the world as well. So it's so nice when we meet different people, when we can we can have access to different cultures. This is fantastic. So it's so crazy and so
It's definitely not just an American
yeah,
problem. It's not just here.
yeah.
It's a problem, all over the world.
All over the world. It doesn't fit in our head. It always blows my mind. So it's crazy. When it's
Yeah.
so beautiful to share differences. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
What about as a Brazilian? Working. You've been living there. How long you been there? In the
In
United
the
States?
country,
About 10, 13. Yeah.
5 years, almost 13 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah,
while.
how do you see, yeah, give us an overview as well about the government, about Donald Trump, how do you guys see, not only the Holly population, I think the Holly population about the government, is the government giving some support for the thing, or how people are dealing with this, about the government, into this problem, this situation?
You talking about the protests, this
Yeah,
movement,
the
right?
protest, yes.
This government, this administration, they're not really taking a big role in the protests.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe in different times when there were protests in the streets, it depends on the president, it depends on their administration. Um, this one, he's a very controversial guy. He doesn't. He did sign a bill, I think, yesterday, a police reform bill that passed in Congress. It was very mild. It was not very bold, not very dramatic. I don't think it would change much. He doesn't seem to speak against the protests, but I don't see a very big, I don't see a serious support for the movement. He does support the police, though. He's really defending the police, not just him, but his administration. So it's a little tense. It's normal. His administration, like the past few years, have been very divisive. So I think it's the same in Brazil and in other countries too around the world.
Yeah.
So it's a little tense, but I don't think the protesters themselves, like the movement, I don't think they care very much about what the president has to say. They want to see change. They want to see local governments, like a mayor and a governor and police departments, individual police departments making changes. They want to see their neighbors, their coworkers taking, their side and understanding what they're exposing. I think it's way more than just what the president has to say. But yeah, from everything that has happened in the 3.5 years that Trump has been president, this has not been, it hasn't been like the most scandalous thing.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, in a situation that we're believing is just, it was the moment for people to get united, and then people are just splitting out, and this is no good. Now we should be working. We needed to be working together. Getting together, just because of the thing that we're living in. It's not a moment to fall apart, to separate. So it's a moment to get united. It would be great if people could think about it. This is more than race, is more than colors, more than skin. It's much more than this. Especially now that we should be all together, And
yeah.
But it doesn't happen this way sometimes,
And it does have to go, from the bottom to the top, from the people, from the ground up. We can't really expect our leaders to start changing.
There's a nice word in English when people say about vision, it's colorblind. Colorblind. And
yeah.
I remember I heard a song in the 90s, a long time ago. It was like colorblind, and we should be colorblind for this race stuff, this racism situation. Everyone should be.
But it's also good that we're talking about it. I think differently from Brazil, at least we acknowledge the problem openly and publicly, and we have really honest discussions about race in this country, in the U.S. And I don't see that very much in Brazil. I could be wrong. I haven't been there in years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's changing in Brazil, but I think even though it seems a little weird to look from the outside, I think it's okay to acknowledge the problem and talk about race and talk about the problems that affect different races openly.
Yeah.
So that's what we do in the U.S. for, you might be bad sometimes in a way, but I think in the end, it's helpful to at least openly discuss the problems.
Yeah. Okay, so it's okay. So if you want to, I don't know if some people that are join us with us, if you want to ask some question, I don't know if we can have a time for, if somebody wants to ask some questions as well, if you want to, I guess so.
Okay.
So let me see. So if you want to, or Nelson, if you want to complete or something, you sell something, or yeah. Okay. There's Fernanda has a question here.
I'm not happy with it.
Yeah, there's an interesting question here. So if you believe that, like, through the social media, they can be used as let me see this. This could be a vehicle. It's been using like a vehicle as like a tool for discrimination as well. How do you see this? Because a lot of people have been using these devices for negatively for discrimination, unfortunately,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's been happening, it's happening, this thing there. So
definitely.
in
Yeah,
Brazil,
not just for that.
yeah,
Social media is very complex. It has so many good. It's good for so many things. Um, is my video paused? It looks like my face froze.
yeah. Hello, I think it's yeah.
Come back. Are you back?
Okay, so yeah, I'm back
Oh
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was just saying. I'm back. I was just
yeah,
yes. People like social media is good for so many things, but it also helps amplify crazy ideas and awful ideas and even racism.
yeah,
So it's good to promote, like independent work and like different ideas, to share your work without needing a big platform. So I think it's mostly a really, really good tool, social media, but we're still learning how to use it. We need, I think, eventually there are going to be policies, maybe government policies or something to help, and also education. Like people need to learn in school how to use social
yeah,
media. Like it's not like you can just throw it like a 90-year-old kid. Oh, here you go, start using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Like no, there are many things that could go wrong with that. There are many crazy people using it for horrible things. It's also dangerous. So I think
yeah,
education would help, like social, I think they call it social media literacy, just teaching kids how to responsibly use social media. But yes, me as a journalist, I use social media a lot, and I see horrible comments, racist comments, xenophobic comments. I get a lot of hate mail myself. A lot of angry readers sending me, um, telling me horrible things, criticizing my stories, calling me a racist if I'm talking about a specific race in a way that they didn't like. So that's the social media. They find the story, they don't like how it was written. They find the reporter's email address and they'll just send a horrible message. So you just got to deal with it. Like I'm fine with it. I just filter it out. Like I don't even read them.
yeah,
Um, but how do you teach everyone to behave the same way? So it's definitely a problem. It's a huge problem, and I know it's a problem in Brazil too. But I don't know if you can just censor the internet. Like it's very hard to just sue people for saying something online because it's so open and you create so many problems. So I don't have a solution, but I think a lot of education and hopefully eventually like policies will help get rid of
yeah,
the worst, people
yeah, and
or
yeah, yeah. I think it was a matter of the tolerance as well of people. I'm 47 years old. I've never seen the human race so different, and every time uh, the years go by, so zero tolerance for everyone. People uncontrolled and losing their control. So I don't
you
know.
don't remember a time that was worse than this one? That like you don't remember a year that was worse than 2020?
2020. Yeah, yeah,
Like do you like you said you're 47 years old?
yeah. I am.
Do you think like from all your 47 years of experience, do you think we're getting worse? Do you think that this is as bad as it has always been in your lifetime?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like I've never seen such a this way that people behave in this way. There was a lot of episodes in during the all the years, but this is I don't know. It's because the not referring to the technology, but people are not even connected, to each other anymore. So it's really difficult living. Some people have lots of difficulties about living each other, well with each other. So I guess um, I think you have to think about it. I think this moment that we are having, this pandemic moment, I think we should think about it. We are getting closer to our families, to our kids, to people who we love, and I think it's a great moment to think, recount and just to reflect about life. So why this is happening? So it must be a reason for it. So maybe we have to take care about ourselves and people that are close to us. And then when we come back, as you said, it's a little far.
When we leave
Maybe
tonight.
we can get better. That's my hope. That's what I hope. Let's see.
Tem uma pergunta aqui.
There's a question.
Charlie está perguntando, Carla,
Yeah.
nossa teacher Carla.
Oh,
What was the most challenging you faced as a journalist in the United States?
oh, it's a good question. Can you see that?
Can you say that again?
What was the most?
Challenging
What was the most challenging
you faced
you faced as a journalist in your career?
Oh, like the biggest challenge as a journalist? I don't. I'm sure there have been several. I'm looking for a second.
Yeah. Maybe a lot.
I think covering court cases, covering criminal cases in court, going through the court proceedings and the trial. That was a great experience for me. I did it in Connecticut, in Danbury, when I worked there 5 years ago, 2015 to 2016. But there were some cases that I covered that were pretty hard to report on and to write about, including, I won't be too specific, but there were cases of abuse against children. So I would go to court to follow a case of a nanny, like a babysitter, who was arrested and charged with abusing a 3-year-old girl, abusing meaning like violently assaulting her.
Yeah.
So I could even give you details, but I won't. But I had to go through the court documents and read all the details. There were videos of the abuse. I think they call it nanny cams, like surveillance cameras for to watch your nanny in the house. So I actually saw with my own eyes the abuse against that child, but it wasn't the only one. I covered other cases involving child abuse, like assaulting children. So it's very hard. And then you have to talk to the family. You have to call the victim's family and get their comments. And you have to talk to the defendant and her lawyer, the woman who's accused of assaulting the child. I think covering really difficult court cases has been a challenge, but also coronavirus. In the beginning of coronavirus, in March especially, and even beginning of April, it was very challenging because I have been writing about coronavirus since January, and I had no idea that it was going to be what it is, what it became. I was writing about coronavirus being in Wuhan, China, and then spreading to other parts of China. And then in February, like, oh my God, it's in Iran and Italy. And then in March, it just exploded. And then how do you explain that to readers? Like, this is serious. It's way more serious than I thought. And I've been writing about it for 2 months. So that was very challenging. And then having to report on death tolls. Today, more than 1,000 people died in Italy. Like, I remember the day that I had to write that story. Like, it's very difficult to even put that in perspective and see if people even understand what that means, how awful that means. So that was challenging. So I guess court cases that are gruesome or difficult to report and coronavirus have been the worst.
Is there an article that I got a question here, so I think I was wondering, Is there an article or material that you would like to? Do you dream to do it, to make? I mean, any? Would you like to write? Is there something that always wanted to write? Any article? It's like a dream article that you really would like to write or to produce.
A dream article that I would like to write,
If you
but I've
have.
never written about, that I never got a chance to write.
Sorry, about what?
Is that what you mean? Like something that are you asking what is a story that I never wrote about that I would like to write about?
If you
Like
got a dream article that you really would like to work on.
I don't have a specific like article idea, like a headline, but I would love to cover people who are jailed and they're innocent. Like there's a word for that. There's a huge organization here called the Innocence Project, and I would love to work with them in identifying someone who was wrongfully convicted. That's the phrase I was looking for. People who are arrested, charged, and convicted, and then they go to prison for years or decades, and then DNA comes out, a DNA test or some new evidence in the case comes out, and they're let go, they're let free because they were there the whole time and they were innocent. So I would love to write about those people, either when they're still in jail, still in prison, or after they leave. What do they do with their lives after being in prison as an innocent person for decades? So I think that's fascinating. Like, how do you start a new life? And I never had a chance to write about that. I wrote about one guy once, but he had left prison like many years ago, and he wasn't in prison for so long. So I think one day I would like to do like maybe a series or something bigger about this topic.
Yeah, there's another question. Can you read it? Because I'm without my glasses, so it's really, let me.
How was your adaptation?
How was your adaptation? Is who's asking this question?
Adri.
Oh. Does Santana is a teacher here. She's asking.
That's your wife.
Yeah, how was your adaptation?
To live in another country.
To living in another country.
And did you miss Brazil?
Do you miss Brazil?
Okay, so as I mentioned in the beginning, it was a little easier for me because I had family here. So when I moved here in 2007, I moved to my dad's house, and I lived with my dad, my stepmother, my step-siblings. So I had a home. It was easier. But the language, of course, was not as easy as you would think, even though I had been studying for years. When you move here, like spoken English, conversational English, is not the same as the one you learn in the books. And even though you have a little bit of practice, it's never enough. I was never scared. I was comfortable because I had a good grasp of, everything that I had learned before. But working in an environment where everyone spoke English to me, and going to school where I didn't speak Portuguese either, I think after a few months, it was hard, but you're just forced to do it. So you have to speak English to your coworkers. I was working at a restaurant in the beginning. You have to speak English to your customers, and in school to your professors and your classmates. So it was a little, intense, just like moving to a different country and not knowing the language 100%.
Yeah.
But after a few months and a few years, you just start adapting and understanding the culture and the slangs and the way of life. And there are many things here that are easier than in Brazil. Like, it's it's way safer. So there are many things that you don't have to worry about here that you do worry about in Brazil.
Yeah.
So it was just, adapting.
Yeah, and she's asking if you miss the country, miss Brazil again.
I do miss many things about Brazil. So I used to go on average once a year. I might have skipped a couple of years when I was in college, but I'd like to go every year. I was there a year ago, this month. I went in June 2019.
Yeah.
I went to just Piracicaba, Campinas, where I have a sister in São Paulo.
Yeah.
But I do miss my family because I have family in Minas Gerais too. My family in Piracicaba. My mom is in Brazil. I definitely miss her. I miss the food. I miss many drinks, and I definitely miss, how beautiful the country is and the beaches and waterfalls. Not so much the weather. I'm okay with the weather here, but yeah.
Okay, Nelson, we're about to finish, and so just to if you want to let a message for us or something, something that comes to your mind, or just a.
Oh, yep.
Anything.
I don't know. You have to be more specific. I don't know, your students, I guess. I would just say definitely take the first chance that you can, if you haven't yet, to travel abroad. Just go. You don't have to move anywhere. Just travel. It doesn't have to be the United States. It can be Canada, or if you're studying English, of course, any English-speaking country.
Very good. Okay, Nelson.
Awesome.
I just want to.
But it wasn't.
Sorry, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little stuck. Yeah. Yeah,
Go
this
ahead.
is Grace. Yeah, please. You got a little stuck when you were talking. Can you're talking to students about when they got a chance to travel abroad? It would be great. Yeah, and then we stopped. We had a frozen. Yeah.
I was, as a man to your students, definitely travel abroad at your first opportunity. Even yet, it helps with your English speaking skills, but also, just learning new cultures. It's not impossible, even if you live in Piracicaba. I was told that it was impossible when I was growing up. Not by my family and my close friends. They always supported me.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible. Definitely travel abroad. You don't have to move anywhere, but travel as much as possible. Come to the US, go to Canada, go to England, Australia. I don't care. But it's a huge, it's a huge experience, and everyone should experience that in their lives.
Yeah.
Visiting a different country, and especially if you're learning English, huge help.
Very good, Nelson. Nelson, just the one man. Thank you so much. Thanks a million. For all this conversation, to giving up your share your time. I know that you're on vacation a little bit, so we are. And we're talking only, vacation, yes. But thank you, man. Thank you so much. You're a good friend. I wish you all the best there. So God bless you there. Everything you do.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. And come to visit us
when
you can. On all this thing.
Thank you for choosing me for this.
Thank you.
I will.
I
will. Yeah. Thanks for choosing me. Thanks, Fernanda.
Yeah. Thank you. Just to give it a tip about the conversation we had, Netflix, there is a nice tip for a movie named actually it's co-produced by Oprah Winfrey. When They See Us. I don't know if you ever watched it. Have you ever watched this film? I think it's a TV show.
When you said the name,
When They See Us.
What is the name again? What is
When They See Us.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it. Good.
It's really good, really good. It's like just given it as a recommendation. I recommend all the people that are watching us to watch this film. It's It's fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, it's co-produced.
It's a 4-part series, I think.
Yes, yes. It's
Like
kind
4
of
episodes, yeah.
1 hour, 1 hour or something. Yes, but it's fantastic. It's a real good. It's yeah. It's what about we're talking. It's a great film. Yeah, it's a real story. Not mistaken. It's co-produced by Oprah Winfrey, but it's just a tip.
It is. No, it is. It is. Yeah, she helped
Yes, it
produce it.
is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Nelson,
it's sad,
thank you.
but it's very real.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.